So you're reading this week, I realize you're reading through some very, very engaging and interesting parts of the Hebrew prophets. And I wanted to not stop necessarily, and this is not a lecture per se. This is a chance for us to dig deeper. It's a chance to reflect. And so this is what I want you to think with me about. In chapter 14, as you were reading chapter 14, I thought that I would just stop and reflect a little bit on that chapter with you and about how important it is. You know, chapter 14 of the liberating path of the Hebrew prophets. In that chapter, we're reminded of how important community is and how important it is to recognize our connectedness with each other. There's a quote, there's several quotes in this chapter I wanted to highlight. Martin Luther King Jr. placed mutual responsibility and community at the center of his social critique. He wrote that the central challenge facing humanity is the adventure of community, the mutual, cooperative, and voluntary venture of man to assume a semblance of responsibility for his brother. We might say sister as well now. The universe is so structured that things do not quite work out rightly if men are not diligent in their concern for others. Now, in the Hebrew prophets, that message is grounded in the idea of loving God and loving your neighbor, and what it means to live with compassion and a sense of human connection and showing not only respect but concern and pathos to have compassion for the other, and to recognize that we are all of us human beings. And so the idea is centered around building community and working together, having respect, showing compassion. Does that sound like something that's relevant for our time? Well, I don't know about you, but it's more than interesting. It's quite concerning to see the kind of animosity, hostility that exists in our culture. And how people tend to be so divided along political lines, and so many things that are happening in the world around us, and how each day there's something new that's divisive. What does it mean to be part of community? What does it mean to build community? Now, here's the thing about the political scenario I was mentioning a moment ago. That has actually impacted what it means to belong to faith communities as well, and so there's division over these kind of issues. We, in many ways, need to hear again what the prophets have to say. This is an important chapter, so I want you to think with me in a deeper way. What does it mean to be part of community? What are the implications of that? How do we show respect for one another and at the same time respectfully disagree with one another? How do we have a discourse? How do we acknowledge difference and diversity and at the same time stay connected with each other? You know how this goes. And we do it with language. Language tends to be the forerunner of action. I mean, look at the Holocaust. But we use language that tends to dehumanize a certain group of people. So we use certain language that, and when that's used often enough, then the mistreatment of people soon follow. And this is a pattern that's happened. So what I'm getting at is take some time in the midst of all of the reading and reflect deeply on how relevant this is, how this study of the prophets can be so very helpful and relevant for our time. Again, the idea of building community is, and King is quoted quite a few times in this text along with others. But I wanted to kind of draw your attention just for a moment. There's on page 131, the loneliness and isolation that I felt is an all too common feature of contemporary life, most certainly among the privileged in Western industrialized countries. The advantaged few in these societies are rich in things and impoverished in human solidarity. Meanwhile, much of the rest of the world suffers a lack of the necessities of life. The lives of billions of people are scarred by deprivation and degradation. One quote out of the text. How do we build a better world? What does community look like going forward? How do we get past this present impasse, even in this country? How do we show the kind of compassion and concern and care for those who are in need in our midst and around the world? How do we do that? How can we do that collectively? These are things I want you to think about, because in the days to come, I'd like to post a discussion question, and then maybe hold a discussion on Zoom with you that we can talk together. I'd like to do that in the future. I hope we will. In the meantime, I know that it's almost 4th of July and that you're going to take some time off with family and friends. At least I hope you do. And we'll pick back up. I'll be posting some additional things in the next few days. But in the meantime, stay current with the reading. Work on your paper, and let's finish strong. Take care.